It doesn't work. I'm from Utah. Nobody's going to say that to me. Welcome. Um, so this is the fundraising and marketing panel session for campaigns over $1 million. And from the outset, I think you all should know that we consider this a group discussion, and we're just your facilitators. Okay, so we're not here to present 3 hours worth of content, and when it comes to that, I kind of don't think we'll be here the entire time. That's just me. So, I even got a clap from Mary. So, I think my work here is done. All right. So, I'm anxious to learn from you all, frankly, because we've got a wealth of knowledge and experience in this room. So with that, let's get down to brass tacks here. So the first thing, step one in running a fun and effective campaign, you don't go anywhere in the CFC without first knowing the regulations. No applause, Mary? Okay, thank you.
Which regulations would that be?
The code of the 5 CFR 950.10, you know what, through 10, you know what. Okay. So really, and of course, it's not just the regulations, as was said already, but the memos and the directives that are issued each and every year. And I know most of you in here know that, but for those who are new, make sure you read the regulations, read the memos, and read the directives. So that'll keep you out of a lot of trouble. And then second, I think, and very important to stress is that you got to know the fundamentals, the blocking and tackling of the CFC, because, and this is Charlie's phrase, not mine, CFC, fundraising is a contact sport, right? So I think that really starts with, at the top, it starts with getting the support of the head of the agency, whether that's the CO, whether that's the executive director of whatever federal agency you're working with. That is the key to success. And I know in our campaign, we have done research. We've surveyed our coordinators, and it was a very striking, very clear correlation between coordinators who responded, yes, I have the support of my federal agency head, and who also reported really strong results for their campaign. I don't think anyone's really going to argue that. After that, the second most important thing that I found is to have really strong, engaging campaign coordinators and great key workers to support them. So the number of key workers will depend on, of course, the size of the federal agency, but we always strive for a 1-to-25 ratio, one key worker per every 25 employees that you reach out to. And I like the way Demetrius put it, that if you have 3 weeks to campaign and you have 25 people to contact, you can contact one in the morning, one in the afternoon on Monday, same thing on Tuesday, and by the time the 3 weeks is up, you've had a really great one-on-one opportunity with every person that you're trying to reach. And I think I shared this for those of you who were in the CFC 101 session. A great example for that in our campaign several years ago was the VA Medical Center in Salt Lake City. When I became the campaign director, they were doing about $35,000 to $45,000 a year. And this is an installation with well over 1,500 employees. So we were able to get 1 year just a really solid, and I can't really take the credit for this, they just found a really solid person to be the campaign coordinator, and she raised that campaign in 1 year from $35,000 up to $60,000. And then that was the year they also implemented a chair-vice chair strategy, so that the person shadowing her knew what she had done, grabbed the momentum, and the next year it went from $60,000 to $80,000, and the last time their results aren't in for this year, but the last time I checked, they were over $120,000. So getting a fantastic, energetic campaign coordinator really can't be overemphasized. I should also point out that right in that same time frame, they got a new executive director of the VA hospital who was very, very supportive, and 3 years ago served as our LFCC chair, and that was the best campaign that we ever had. And then the third fundamental of the campaign is, of course, one-on-one, face-to-face contact, as I mentioned earlier. I think if you stick to those three sort of fundamentals of the campaign, everything else will just kind of fall into place. Not that there isn't room for fantastic, creative ideas and innovation, because you should certainly shoot for that. But I think those three things, if you can get those three things, your campaign will be successful. But one thing we want to do with everything we talk about is to open it up to you guys, and what are some of the fundamental things that have maybe there's another point here that you would like to add that you think has been really successful to your campaign, and I'm really interested to learn. Don't all stand up at once, no?
Okay, that'd be a big
All right.
no.
Okay, so those are all right, so that's it. Those are the fundamentals. So I'm going to, Charlie's up for, he's going to talk a little bit about campaign structure. Are you coming up here, or are you staying down there?
So I got this one because sometimes, campaigns are all local, right? We all know that. And we have different audiences that we have to not only appeal to, but work with. So what I put up here says basically about 6 years ago, we went to the LFCC and said, loaned executives don't work for us. When we do get them, they tend to be the lame, sick, and dying, or they've already retired and nobody has given them their retirement paycheck yet, so they're just hanging around waiting for it. And I got about halfway through that when General Leonard, who was the commanding general of the MCI West, leaned over to Admiral Herring and said, he's right. We really don't give them very good people, do we? And so what we proposed was doing away with loaned executives. And one of the arguments that I used was, we don't need people to come over and sit with us and do nothing for 4 or 5 months, or to say they're doing something and they run out to their bases or wherever they're going and come back with nothing. So how about since we do break down in our campaign into large groups, how about if you give us somebody that's like a major or a lieutenant colonel or a lieutenant commander or a commander or a postmaster or somebody that's a little bit higher up on the food chain to run your entire group, and you take responsibility for getting the campaign coordinators. And why did we do that? Because when we go out in June or July and we ask for loaned executives, sometimes you can hear the crickets chirping, and we didn't get very good response. But what we found out, of course, is if the various admirals, generals, whoever's running things, if they go out and they ask all of their subordinate commands to cough up campaign coordinators, guess what? You get them. Yeah, sure. And that's not just because it's military. That's true at the post office. It was true at the federal side. And it worked pretty well. So now what we did, though, is we sort of shifted the responsibility from us, and there are only 3 of us, trying to take care of 770 or whatever it is, 800 coordinators, to those guys taking care of their coordinators and being responsible for them. And the coordinators, it fits right into their normal way of life because they are used to responding to somebody that's a little bit higher in the food chain. And since then, the campaign, we've had the normal ups and downs because of other, environmental considerations, if you want to call it that. But generally speaking, it works very well. And instead of, 3 people trying to coordinate with all of these people at once, we now have limited our span of control, if you like, to 12 or 13, I guess it is, 15 different, what we call campaign action officers. And it works. The next thing we tried to do, and we're still working on this, and I got to tell you, we are, it's a fun campaign. We live in San Diego. Life is good. This stuff doesn't happen, outside here. But we also have a lot of competition. People have lots of other things that they would like to do. But one of the things, and when I say that, what I'm saying is it's a great place to live, but in terms of CFC campaigns, I've always said that we're terribly underperforming. And one of our goals, of course, is always to try to get them to do better. But that's a struggle, and I'm sure all of us have the same kind of struggle. So I don't want to start this off by giving the impression that everything is so terrific in San Diego that you'd want to come live there. We really don't want you to do that. Costs enough as it is. But when we talk about, as we got into this organizational setup and everything, I agree with what everybody says about getting leadership involved, but you got to think about who the leadership is that you're getting involved, my opinion. The big guys, if you've got SESs, admirals, generals, who did I leave out here? Anybody else like that? That's great. They're great at pontificating and saying a few words. I'm all for it. Some do better than others. But what we find is that mid-level leader is probably just as important. Here's my example. If you go up to the 1st Marine Division up at Camp Pendleton, very large group of people, about 16,000 of them, the general can come out and say, hoorah, we're going to give and everything like that, and everybody kind of nods their head. But if you don't get one sergeant major to step up and hand you a pledge card, I will guarantee you will not be successful in the 1st MARDIV in Southern California. Because that guy, who's been around forever, if he doesn't see any reason for him to give, none of those kids will either. And again, I want to reemphasize, we deal with probably a little different clientele than a lot of you. Most of our people are 18 to 24. If you're 30, 35, anybody here over 35? If you're over 35, you are old. If you're over 50, they wonder how you are still functioning. If you're like me and you're way past 60 and you have lost most of your hair and what you have is white, they won't even come talk to you because they figure you're somebody they should not be engaging with. So we have a little different perspective out there. So those sergeant majors, master chief petty officers, your line supervisors at the border, your line supervisors for the Border Patrol, if those guys aren't engaged and part of that leadership that you're talking about, it doesn't work. So we have to we got to get the big guys to nod their heads, and then we have to go get in bed with those other folks to make it work. And we haven't been 100% successful at that at all. It's a really big group of people to go after, and a lot of them have really different opinions about whether they should give or not. But that's why I say, you might want to take a look at, and that's why this is just for consideration, how are you set up? And are you marketing to the right people? I mean, how many people here use loaned executives? A lot. Are you always happy with them? I know some people have great success with loaned executives. Anybody unhappy with them? Sometimes, sure. Yeah. Have you ever sent loaned executives back home? Yeah. Okay. Perfect example. That's you try and avoid that, but that can happen. I'm not saying that you should switch over or anything. It's like I said, it's just for consideration that there are different ways to attack your campaign structure and how things work. This seems to be working for us. We will continue this way. We are predominantly military campaigns, so it sort of fits into the way that they're used to doing things. Okay, that's all I had. Anybody comments? I got these lights in my face here. They, well, you agree. Anybody got alternatives to that they'd like to throw out?
I'd just like to make one comment.
Yeah.
Hoorah, first off, I'm the former base XO for Camp Pendleton, California, so
Well,
thanks for your work.
You know what
out
I'm
there.
talking about, right?
Absolutely. I just would tell you, too, in terms of marketing strategy, something we always found successful on our bases, and currently I'm the Federal Executive Board Director for the state of Minnesota, is it really tying people to a story. When CFC used to come to Camp Pendleton as the base XO, I'd go out there and tell my son's story about how CFC and the Red Cross saved my son's life. So I just tell you, I think often people really tie themselves to that story or something that's real to them. Or the Navy Relief Campaign used to also use me as well. And I think as we kind of tell a story or really connect people to something that's local so it's tangible to them, really gives them something to share. And I think I'm just one story, but anytime you talk to a crowd of 30 to 50 people, multiple people have those stories about how these programs and maybe even the charities in which we use have really made a positive impact in their life. And I think that's something that we can leverage probably even greater going forward and may have a greater impact too up in the bases. But thank you for your service.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Anybody, I don't think, let me think of it. I don't know of anything as effective as talking to a group of federal employees than getting one of their own to stand up and say, hey, I've done this or I've had this happen, or one of their own who would say, I've got a child, and you probably don't know this, but I got a child who has leukemia, and then they go through the whole story. And I've had this happen to me while I've been out training, and you can tell the whole room goes silent, and they all turn around and they go, oh, clearly I didn't know that. And you can see the spike in those campaigns immediately. I just thank you for doing that. I wish you want to come back out to.
Cover my travel. I'll be out there tomorrow.
Okay. Who's doing this?
Me. Good afternoon, folks. First, I'm going to tell you a bit about me and my journey in CFC. I just completed my 21st campaign. So I've been at this a while. I've been sitting out here in your seats. I've been listening to all the things that were being said. I've heard them several times. Some of them are good. Do not get me wrong. I am a big proponent of loan executives, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I had 10 of them last year. They helped me raise my goal. We had to keep the fun in fundraising because we had what? A shutdown right in the middle of the campaign. We run a pay-setter campaign. What we try to do, and I'm from Cleveland, good old sunny Cleveland, Ohio. Okay, go Browns, that's right. And we were about to really execute our campaign. Our pay-setter campaign, our goal is to raise $1 million in the first 3 weeks of the campaign. Have we done that? Yes, we have. Most years we get the $1 million. So we had just put all our little feelers out, talked to all our people that we need to talk to, and was about to execute that, and boom, government shut down. So we started off a little under the bus, but we did not let that get us down. We selected a team, selected a theme, That's the first thing we did. I worked with Suzanne Dutra this year, so I used the theme that she had. It worked wonderful in our campaign. And what I try to encourage my loan executives to do when they go out, I said, before you say anything, always say that theme first. Serving our country, supporting our community. That was how we started everything when we went out and talked with our folks in the field. We developed a campaign team. As I said, I had 10 loan executives. We had key worker training. We held it in September. Our campaign kicked off on September 14th. And that was our pacer to drive during those first 3 weeks, as I said. In October 1st or 2nd, when we went and had the shutdown, we were right in the midst of getting out and getting those pledges going. But, we didn't quite get off before we did that. We had a 16-day layover, and then we went back to it. But we developed that campaign team. That's very important. We began to make our personal contacts. Now, let me say this. When you go out and you're making a personal contact, what do? Do you call them? Do you go visit them? Face to face. There you go. You want to go and see the people face to face. Because guess what? When you call them, they can just click. Don't even have to pick up that phone, do they? But when you go knock on that door and say hi, and you don't want to say, it's CFC time again. No, you don't want to go out like that. But you want, hi, it's me. How are you? How's the campaign going? There's a couple things you do before you even do that from my perspective. We go out, and I heard somebody say earlier this morning, we meet with a group of folks who are what I consider to be our Big 11. I'm a civilian campaign. Any of those other civilian campaigns in here? I am strictly a civilian campaign. There is no military. I don't have a general. Don't have a major. I have 4 agencies that are really big. NASA Glenn Research Center, my biggest agency. United States Postal Service, VA Medical Center, DFAS Cleveland. I go out, I meet with those agency directors. I talk to them about what happened in last year's campaign and what we're going to do for this coming year's campaign. Make sure they're on board. I talk to them about the facts. Nothing worse than going out talking to the people and you don't know the facts. You got to make sure you have your 1417 done. We talked about that this morning. That's very important because you got to know your numbers when you go out and talk to your people. If you go out and talk to them and you don't know your numbers, they're not going to know theirs. And that's very important when you're starting out in the campaign. Be prepared for the questions. You want to ask them questions, they're going to ask you some. They want to know that you know what you are talking about. That's very important. You have to go out, let the people know, hey, we had a shutdown last year. Do you think that's going to have any effect on this year? Do you think people didn't give? DFAS, I'm going to tell you, they were an agency who had furloughs throughout the year. They had 6 of them. They didn't get paid for those. Then they were asked to not shut down, but to continue to work. But we never could get that campaign off the ground. You know why? Because they had furloughs. The people were disgruntled. But we still went out and spoke with that campaign and made sure that they understood why they needed to give. Know your facts. Just don't go out and sit there and wait for them to tell you. You be able to tell them what you think you can do for that year to make that campaign work. Encourage payroll deduction. Now, I know we're all talking about that we're going online. That's a wonderful thing. We had MyPay. We had EEX. NASA has EEX. They gave over $400,000 through that system. They're wonderful things. But be prepared to tell the people that they need to do payroll deduction. That's the main thing. We don't have credit cards in Cleveland. I have a 40-county campaign, 37 in Ohio, 3 in Western Pennsylvania. It's all, done online, not through any other type of deduction, just payroll deduction. No credit card, none of that stuff. So the main thing is you let the people know we need you to donate through payroll deduction. People had questions about when is that deduction going to come out. I really didn't know. I kept calling trying to get answers about that. But my main thing was if you donate payroll deduction, don't worry about when those will come out. We will get your money. Okay? Just make sure you go out and you donate. That's what I was making sure of. Okay. Know how to make the ask. What's the number one reason why people do not give you anything? Because you don't ask them. You have to go out and ask people to give every single year. It's important that you do that. If you don't ask them, I know a lot of times, I'm a fundraiser, been one for all these years. I'll have my payroll copy of my thing ready to give in, but I stick it in my drawer. I get to running around. Nobody comes back and asks me. Guess what I do? I forget to give it. Make sure you ask and contact everybody that you are responsible for. That's very important. So once you build all those things and start your campaign off, then you're ready to go. Okay, who's next?
Who's this? Is this me?
That was me. I guess.
Oh, this is you.
Yeah.
Yep, that's you, Charlie.
Okay. Okay, so can you hear me? We're going to talk a little bit more about that. So, see, we all have kind of different approaches to this, and I'm sure you guys do too. But again, based on locality, the only thing that we think and what we teach is the only thing that really works is you got to get up in front of somebody, eyeball to eyeball, face to face, and you got to ask them. Now, there are ways to help that. We don't discount, obviously, kickoffs and big presentations if you can get those big events. But I will tell you, like in our particular campaign, those are really difficult to do. Remember I was telling you about the first MARDIV? They just don't form up someplace and stand around waiting for somebody to come talk to them. That doesn't happen. So you have to work it through the coordinators and through the key workers. But we really try and get across to them that the only thing that really, really works is getting in front of their faces and asking them. And you can be brutal about it, too. By that, I mean, you can be honest. The one thing I've always told them is that nobody expects you to be Lounge Lizard Larry and suddenly try to sell a used car to all these people, because if you do that, they're going to wonder who they're talking to. If you're a guy or a gal that's, you do most of your talking while you're looking at your feet, you're not going to suddenly change to become Mr. or Mrs. Presentation, so don't worry about it. It's okay to ask them to give while you're looking at your feet. It'll work because they know you. They know who you are, and they know that that's the way you do business. So you have to be honest about yourself, and you have to be compelling. So if you have a story, that's great. Not everybody does. Remember, I guess the other problem I was telling you about, not problem, it's just the way it is, but a really large portion of our campaign are 18 to 24-year-olds. What are their problems? Mom and dad are still alive, grandparents are still alive, aunts and uncles are still alive. If you talk to them about things that afflict old people, they're kind of like, yeah, okay. So you've got to go other routes. Now, one of the things that we have, and we of course we try and be equal to everybody, but we have a very large contingent of wounded warriors in San Diego. We have 3 complete battalions up in 29 Palms down in San Diego and up at Camp Pendleton. So we don't really single them out, but we do tell people that you have folks among you who have made the sacrifice, and if you can't think of anything else, why not think about them? And that goes over okay. But we do tell them that if you can get a hold of folks at things like quarters, musters if you like, through award ceremonies. There's lots of different things that they do that you don't ever get everybody, but you'll get a majority, and that works too. But they have to the one thing that we try and emphasize when they're asking is you got to have to think about it a little bit ahead of time. And if you do that, then you'll be prepared, and it'll all work out just fine. And I know we've heard already here today, yesterday, there's lots of different ways to do this, but our emphasis, of course, is the fact that it really is the premier, the number one way to raise money. And the other example I tell them is that, at the United Way, we do a campaign, and we're in the business, so we know why there is a campaign to raise money in the United Way every fall. But they make a big deal out of it, and they ask each and every one of us personally to help out, and it works. We generally, now you would expect it to be, we don't always get 100%, but you expect it to be high. And I tell them, we don't expect you necessarily to be 100%, but we expect you to try and talk to everybody and get what we always call 100% contact. And it generally works pretty well. You got the next one.
Before we go on, I'm really interested to know what asking techniques you guys use and what you've found effective. And I think what Charlie says is really important, that you kind of do it from the heart, from who you are, and not try to be somebody that you're not. The question I like to encourage people to ask is, what's important to you? And that gets people thinking about, well, okay, my family, my church, my dad had this disease, or whatever it might be. But before we go on, I really want to know, how do you train your key workers and your coordinators to make the ask? I know you do it. Here's Catherine. Thanks.
Well, I'm not answering your question. I'm actually, I want you to share your story about the key worker who makes the challenge that you shared with CFC 101 yesterday about finding a charity they care about. I thought that was brilliant.
Oh, yeah. This was, we have a key worker out at Hill Air Force Base who does it every year. I mean, the guy literally looks like Santa Claus. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm sorry. But he's got a white beard, and it's jolly kind of St. Nicholas type of guy. Anyway, for years he has issued a challenge. When he talks to his people, he says to them, "Hey, you find me, you pick a topic, and if I can't find a charity in the CFC that addresses that topic, I'll make a $50 donation to that charity, or $20, or whatever it is. But it's it's a fairly significant amount. I'll make a $50 donation to any other charity of your choice." And so they think it's it's a fun challenge, and so every year they throw out, say, to try to stump him. And the one that I remember is that somebody said, "Hey, I bet you can't find a charity about dirt." Well, he went through the book, and before they knew it, he had soil conservation charities and all kinds of environmental related that actually had something to do with soil or dirt or whatever. So they lost, and so I think the bet was, I'll make a $20 donation, but if I can, you got to do $1 a paycheck for the one I find, something like that. But yeah, it's an interesting story, and it's an interesting challenge. But there is something, I firmly believe that there is something in that book for everybody, no matter who you are, no matter what your cause, no matter what your passion is. You're going to find something in the CFC that speaks to that passion.
Let me ask you folks to try something. Everybody stand up. I know you should be tired by now. Can you stand up?
You want this one?
Yeah. Okay, this is something we try when we're in key worker training, and sometimes we go out and we do different things. And I want you to have your seat if what I say responds to you. Anybody in your family, your friends, your relatives who've been affected by cancer, please sit down. Any of your family, friends who is affected by heart disease, please sit down. Is there anybody standing up? Okay. I went through 2. Sometimes we go through 3. Sometimes I get to Alzheimer's. Sometimes I get to diabetes. But if there are more than one person standing by the time you get to the end, you take that person aside after the training and ask them, "Who are you and where are you from?" Because those couple of diseases affect everybody all over the world.
That's awesome. If there's someone left standing, I want to know what's in the water that they're drinking.
I had a sergeant major do that up at Camp Pendleton, and he had a couple of kids standing after that, and he looked at them. He said, "You boys drink?" And they said, "Yes, Sergeant Major." He said, "You got a problem. Sit down."
All right. Okay. Oh, I don't know if this is my slide still. This is someone else's.
That's okay.
That's all right. Okay. So we've talked about this. The number one number one reason people do not contribute is they are not asked. And man, I'll tell you what. Nothing makes my blood boil faster than if I get an email January 2nd that says, "When is the campaign? I never heard about it at my federal agency." Have you guys got that email? Or no one ever talked to me about this campaign this year, and I'm like, I hit the roof because we work so hard to get the word out, and somebody just completely drops the ball. But so yeah, and I'll be honest with you, as busy as I am, and I'm a fundraiser, 100%. But if they didn't come by and say, hey, and I work for United Ways too, and not a federal employee, but we do a workplace campaign just like at Charlie's office, and if they didn't pause and say, time out, we're going into our own conference room and we're going to have our United Way campaign, I would forget to sign up for payroll deduction because that's how busy I am. So you have to be asked, and I think someone mentioned it the other day that I was sitting by. I believe that in the heart of every person is a desire to give, no matter what form that expression that gift finally takes. It's in the heart of every person, and some people do choose another vehicle, obviously, and that's okay. So you can talk in terms of how much can somebody accomplish with their gift, and this I think goes back to payroll deduction, because if you were to come to me right now and say, Bruce, can you give me $20 for my cause? I'm gonna pull my wallet open and go, let's see, well, I need this for lunch, and I need, right now I got like $12 in my wallet. That's it. So that's going to be actually kind of hard for me to do. But through the ease and convenience of payroll deduction, several dollars a paycheck at the end of the year, I give, it adds up to hundreds, not tens. Mandy, you have a comment? Thank you.
I have a comment. You saying that you're a busy person, you might have forgotten to do your payroll allotment, reminded me of a story that I just wanted to share with everybody. I think it's really important that we remind our key workers that they can re-ask. So if they go and they make that personal ask and somebody says, oh, well, let me think about it, or, oh, yeah, I intend to give, but I want to go online, or, I need to have a second to go home and look through the brochure, whatever it is, that's okay for them to come back then the next week and follow up and say, have you gone ahead and completed your pledge? And here's my example why. My husband's a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and he's a squadron commander, so he's, relatively busy. His wife has worked for the Combined Federal Campaign for 10 years, and so he's, more familiar than most people probably with the campaign. He knows when it's going on. He knows what he should do. He pledges every year. So he's a captive audience, He gets asked by his key worker. He intends to make his pledge. Well, this year he wanted to try MyPay, which was a new giving option. And so he came home and talked to me about it. I think I'm going to give on MyPay. And I said, oh, honey, I think that's a great idea. It would be a great example for your folks to know that you had used this new option. Then you'd be able to talk to them about it. Okay, yeah, great. So he would come home, and about once a week I would ask him, have you had a chance to go on MyPay and make your pledge? Oh, no, I forgot. Please remind me. So I'd send him an email, don't forget to go on MyPay, make your pledge. Well, it ended up that it was like the last week of the campaign, and I have to go into his office and sit down behind him on his computer and help him go through and make his pledge. So, he intended to give. He wanted to give. He just needed that reminder. And so I think it's great to share with our key workers that they can keep re-asking until the person actually completes the pledge.
That's a good point. We're all human, and humans forget stuff. Yeah, Jerry.
Okay, so we always want to get the people, we always ask for people, we want quality folks who are outgoing, who people like, but we know we don't always get all those kind of folks. We get people who are timid, we get people who are shy. I don't know how well this works, but one of the things I try to do is to communicate to the key workers, if you're shy, if you're not very outgoing, this is a growth opportunity for you. Because if you can learn this skill, and I know you can because we can all do it, to ask other people, to share with them this really human thing about making a contribution to a charitable cause, if you can do that, it's going to pay off in every other place in your life. And I usually spend about 5 minutes on that in the half-hour, 1-hour training that I do. I can't say that I have any quantitative way of measuring how successful it is, but I do notice that some people who are almost asleep start paying better attention when I try to communicate to them that there's something, aside from just doing a good thing, there's actually something in it for them in improving their own abilities, capabilities, etc.
Yeah, I think we've all been the trainer in the room looking out over the people we're talking to, and you can pick them right out, the ones that are scared to death.
I'll add to that I say to them often, you have to get inspired. If you're not inspired, you're not going to be inspiring. So you need to, kind of work on this. And, I think a lot of us use that technique. Pick the easy folks first.
Yeah.
Kind of get your talk down a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that my belief is that everybody has got a story somewhere, and you may not feel like it's a really compelling story, but if you don't have one, borrow your coworkers, talk to your parents, whatever. I'm sorry, there's a comment here.
I just want to piggyback. Yeah,
piggyback
I'm banking on what my two predecessors said. Sometimes the people that we ask to do the ask feel intimidated, and so if we could just give them the words, the idea, the notion of what they can say. Something that I use, especially right now since I'm new in the position and I'm dealing with a lot of people, is when I call, I always say hi, I introduce myself, and then I ask, do you have a minute? Because being in the military environment, where that's my largest population, most of the time people don't have that minute. And so if they say yes, then you say, great, thank you for giving me that minute, and keep it to that minute. Don't make it long-winded. Give your elevator speech and then move on. Ask them when a good time to follow up is. It's okay to ask them, when can I come back? If they say no, then you say, hey, thanks for your honesty. When can I get back with you? Can I call you? Would you prefer me to email you? Or how can I best be in contact with you? And so that kind of takes the edge off of it for these people who are intimidated. And then you can take it a step further. If they're still not comfortable with that, then do a role play, Do the role play and have them say, hey, I'm the person you're asking. Ask me. And then don't say yes. Say no. Yell at them. Scare them. And then say, okay, was that so bad? No, let's try this again. And, make it fun. Engage them.
Thank you. Wink?
We do some of the same stuff too, but then this year we decided to use the pledge form and the small pledge online form. We said these are our marketing devices. This isn't just a pledge form. This is a marketing device. Hand one out to every person. You've got your 100% contact. They've got a visible thing sitting on their desk, and you will have done it. And you could see people who were shy saying, oh, good, a tool. I've got a tool to use.
Yeah, and like CFC of Miami Valley, we did the sticky note where it was a leave behind, and it's really visible because you can stick it right across their computer screen. So, Barb?
Oh, I'm going to ditto what Wink said, because we've always done that, and it's a very cheap marketing. But we changed the context of the ask this year. And it was a little risky in one of our regions, particularly because it's 95% military. But you want to pay attention to your culture, because over the years we've built this culture of competitiveness between our bases, and so the giving became more about the goal than it did about the charities. And so we went back with the national capital theme, and we went back with the $1 Million Roundtable theme, and I presented those themes, and then I listened to my LFCC, and they said, we need to change what we're doing. And so our theme became, it's not about the goal, it's about the need.
I saw that on your brochure, yeah.
And I have to tell you, the resistance that had been felt in the past was lowered. Now, I can't quantify the success of that except to say in 3 regions our average gift went up, because I took that to our other regions and it resonated. And they're civilian regions. But we had natural disasters in the one region that I really wanted to get the quantitative determination of how effective your theming is. And unfortunately, because the wildfires that took 500 homes out happened before the actual solicitation, and then we followed wildfires with flooding, go figure. We did not have the campaign that we probably would have had, but the average gift went up, and I can say I saw it firsthand, the resistance went down, and there were no thermometers, there was nothing based on gold.
Thanks. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And very different. The number one question, see if anybody else has this. The number one question we get from coordinators, this ought to be pretty self-evident. What did the guy before me do? In other words, how much did the coordinator last year raise? And then, because they are competitive, right? And so then they go, okay, I can do better than that. And we're okay with that. But this is you could do a combination, right? I'm assuming you still get that question. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Rick Rober from San Antonio. First of all, Charlie, great points on the senior enlisted involvement. In San Antonio this year, I was surprised that I was the first one to really deliberately engage our senior enlisted forums, top 3, Chiefs Association, Sergeant Majors. And those are the folks, I absolutely agree, that get the campaigns going, especially with the young kids. The commander, the CO may say something, but when the chief or the sergeant major or the chief petty or the master chief petty officer speaks, those are the ones that they listen to. So getting their buy-in and inclusion on the campaign is really important. And whenever we do CEO calls, I don't ask just to meet with the commander, I ask to meet with the command team. So I'm looking for the commander, the vice commander, the senior enlisted, first sergeant, because the first sergeant in particular, they're the ones that know the pulse of the organization. And that's one where they may be able to find in their organization somebody that has had, a child afflicted or somebody who's going through something. And there's a good way to find out if there's a story in the organization that will resonate with that particular organization. I also just want to say we used our charity brochure a little bit different this year. I pushed it out to everybody a little bit earlier than we had intended to once the furloughs were going. And we told folks, hold on to them for the CFC. But first and foremost, this charity brochure is your guide to help your folks if they need it right now. If you got somebody, because of the furloughs, then when the government shut down, we had reiterated it. If you have somebody that is going through some financial difficulties, there's charities in there. You have something with your kids or education, there are charities in there. So first and foremost, use it as a reference for you. And that also resonated that the CFC and these charities aren't just something that happens somewhere else. A natural disaster happens somewhere else. It happens right here in the community. And we got some great results from that. An appreciation for the folks for doing that. So it wasn't just give us your money. It was, yeah, we still want your money, but also we want you to have these resources in case you need them.
That's an excellent point. One thing we did this year, Ogden, Utah is home to a very large IRS population, and when the shutdown hit, I got on the phone with 2 people I know very well at the IRS, and then we got the local food bank on the phone and said, how can we make it easy for federal employees, especially the low-grade IRS phone workers, who we're going to need help during this time. How can we make it easier for them to get the assistance they need? And the food bank immediately said, as long as a person comes in and shows federal ID, we won't make them go through the usual application process to get a food basket. And we were able to get that word out through the newspaper, social media, our website, and then just personal emails between IRS employees. And what we found was over 150 IRS workers were able to take advantage of that, and then they followed up with a newsletter letting everybody know how that came about, and that it was through the CFC that happened. And so I was really grateful for the way that played out. Yes, sir.
Great, thanks. George Schwerb from Northern New Jersey CFC. 2 quick points when we talk to our new folks who have not made asks before. We remind them that they should talk less, listen more. Better to hear the feedback from what the folks are saying. And the other point is when they're making the ask, that they should really start with people that they know first, so that then there's a comfort level, and from there, then they have that little role play that was mentioned earlier, and then they can build in more skills as they go along.
Definitely to help build your confidence. Another thing I would add to this is that I know we all harp on face-to-face, eyeball to eyeball, and that's super important. I don't mean to minimize that at all, but sometimes it's okay to play to your strengths. And what I have in mind is a few years ago, I had a coordinator with a small fish and wildlife office in Salt Lake City. And I don't know whether she was uncomfortable approaching people face-to-face or one-on-one or what it was, but she was a very effective communicator through email. And every week of their campaign, I think it was a 4-week campaign, she sent a new email with a new story, and it was usually a personal story. She had a lot of personal stories to share, but she would copy me on those, and every time she sent out an email, she convinced another person or two in her office to give. And I know they'd been reading them all, so sometimes it was the 4th email that got through to somebody and touched them, and they signed up to give. That campaign that year did the best it's ever done. So, someone else have a...
I'm John Fornicola from the Chattanooga campaign, and I just wanted to add that I believe we've talked about different ways to communicate. I believe that different forums sometimes dictate different ways to ask that question. And one of the things we do at the leadership meeting, which is the leadership givers meeting, $1,000 and above, when I address that crowd, what I like to challenge them about is give more this year. And I don't do that before I've given more each year, so that I've already given, and I'm asking them to do the same thing. And then those leadership people, many of whom are also leaders in their organizations, will challenge each other. So there's some going on about the goal, challenging each other. They already understand the outcome of that goal, what we're trying to do, but then as a key worker, we need to challenge those folks to do the face-to-face, talk more about, what the benefit of all this is. And oftentimes when we have meetings, and probably many of you do the same thing, we bring in an agency as well. We ask somebody to step up and talk about their own personal experience, but then we also bring in charitable agencies that can talk about where the money goes and what they do to the people in their community.
Thank you.
There was the. I want to go back to, I think Barb and Dee Dee mentioned follow-up. We use that term too. And sometimes we get the, well, isn't that nagging? And I will tell you, that's a question I think you'll get. I mean, we get it a lot. So my response usually is, no, follow-up is something that somebody should expect. If you ask them to give or participate in your campaign, and they say, yeah, let me think about that, well, then a follow-up is nothing more than a reminder, hey, Bob, you through thinking about that? What are you going to do? And they go, okay. Nagging is when you get asked to take the garbage out 25 times while you're watching the football game on Sunday. That's nagging.
This is good.
Is my wife here? Wait.
This is going to spiral out of control real fast. Here we go. I think it's also important that when we train people to ask, these are all excellent points, by the way, that we make sure that we train the coordinators and key workers on what the benefits of giving through the CFC are. We talked about payroll deduction. I like to talk about the 4 C's, and those are, in my mind, choice, because there's something in there for everybody. Control, that's one I wanted to say later, but convenience of payroll deduction, online pledging, cash check or credit card. You choose the method, right? Confidence was the one I wanted to say first, because every charity is vetted. You know that it's on the IRS master file. You know that a committee of your peers has screened these organizations, that they're legitimate 501c3 charities. Control was another one, that you control how much you give, you control how much information about yourself is released on your pledge. I think that's something we overlook sometimes, is that through the CFC you can remain anonymous, and a lot of our donors do choose to remain anonymous. And then the camaraderie of giving together in a group environment, I think, is something that it's a benefit of the CFC that you don't get when you give alone, when you give outside, when you give directly through a website or something. That the camaraderie of coming together with your peers to make a difference. So those are what I call the 4 C's. Any other benefits you guys like to stress when you talk to your coordinators or key workers? Here comes a comment. Is their mic dead? I'll repeat the question if I can. It's dead. Great question. I want to hear your answers too. I don't want to be the one to talk every time.
Anybody?
All right.
All right.
Eric's gonna take-
We do a lot in recognition. And so it always starts with letting people know how much we appreciate them before they ever get started. And then throughout the training process, every email that we send out is thank you so much for helping make a difference in our community, every communication. And then at the end of the campaign, we really like to make sure everybody feels good. So, of course, we have done certificates of appreciation forever. Most campaigns do. We have the recognition coins for those that achieve benchmark criteria. And but all of that stuff is material stuff. The thing that matters most is that personal thank you. And so what we have done for years is had a community-wide appreciation event, which most of you do too. But it's not about the CFC giving recognition, it's about the peers seeing that recognition. So I think we've done it wrong for a number of years, because this year we did it as a hub. We did it more close to where the agency is and the people are. And we did it more in front of the peer level instead of the community at large. And that personal recognition in front of the agency head, in front of the peers, is what really, really matters in terms of recognition. To know that they went the extra mile, they did the additional duty, and somebody really cared that they did. And it wasn't that CFC gave them the award necessarily, it was that the agency head was there for them to receive the reward and get the picture, that type of thing. So engaging your agency heads and letting them know the importance of them recognizing their own personnel. We always consider our awards event not really awards event, but recruitment events. How are we going to bring these people back next year? And the other thing that we have always integrated into any event that we do like that is our rule must have fun. And so everything we do, we must have fun. So
What happened to chocolate?
Mary, what happened to my rule must have chocolate?
Mike?
I wanted to 100% agree with that and piggyback off that. One of our military bases on their own came up with 3 award criteria for their key workers, 3 separate awards. And they did it very, very creatively. And I think what was great about it is that it was very specific awards that they were given. They had names for them all. I can't remember all. One of them was Fleet Feet, and that was for the unit that was the first to meet their goal. So you got a Fleet Feet award. One was a highest percentage participation award, and I don't remember the name for that one. And then another award was the highest increase for a particular unit in pledges. And that, just like you were saying, Barbara, that was some award ceremony that they put together by themselves, and the commander is the one who recognized these people and gave out the awards, and it made a huge difference for that campaign.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Great question, Anise. Huge, huge. An award ceremony is a must-do, not a choice. I think that's something that's a must-do for us being who we are as far as managing large campaigns, especially when you're managing large campaigns. So today was the Department of Navy's award ceremony during all this chaotic of a weather. However, I actually just got an email back from our campaign team and they basically said, you know, the award ceremony went off without a hitch. So to, you know, of course, make comments on what, you know, a couple of the previous folks said, it's important to, if you have any military folks, and or if you don't have any military folks, to ensure that you ask the most senior person in that organization, whether it's the Commandant of the Marine Corps, whether it's the Secretary of the Navy, whoever the SCS or whom, you know, and or executive in that organization, to write a letter to include in that person's jacket. That goes a long way. Another thing that goes a long way is to include things like to see what the benefits they did within the campaign that can affect not just the campaign but the community, and look at what type of civilian awards that person can receive. Because I think that's something that's also underestimated as far as how much work throughout the campaign season or throughout the year that happens, and that just kind of gets brushed under the table. A lot of those things can be considered for civilian awards because, granted, you're doing a lot of hard work, but then at the same time, as far as civilians, if you look at how many years of service majority of these people have, they deserve, I mean, I don't want to say they deserve, but that's something that they can be recognized as far as civilian awards. So for folks that have been doing this campaign for like 20, 21 years, that's like huge. Another thing is, as far as agency heads, if you ask them to provide a letter or signed a certificate, they'll sign a certificate. You just have to give it to them, and don't forget at the end of the campaign, because if someone doesn't get an award or they don't get recognized, guess what? That turns them off for next year. Mm-hmm. So you want to ensure that, especially if you're running a large campaign, especially over $1 million campaign, that you're not just recognizing the folks that you see every day, but ensure that at the beginning of the campaign, you create a list. You ask for a list of your campaign team and have that with you. So by mid-campaign, you've already had a plan as to what you're going to do for those folks in recognizing them. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to get in here. You know, we had our award ceremony on January 28th, and it was one of the worst days we've had weather-wise in Cleveland. It was like minus 40 degrees, I believe. It was really, really cold. But we didn't cancel it. The Coast Guard was unable to come and present the colors because the office was shut and these kind of things. But we still had our awards. It's important to say thank you, thank you, thank you as many times as you can. You can't say that enough. But we have one category that I kind of invented, and just from watching people reach out and do their campaign, and we call it the Above and Beyond Award. What I do is I give the loan executives, and there were 10 of them, so they each had 5 persons apiece. And they gave them that award above and beyond, a certificate. They signed it, I signed it. But we give it to the folks and we let them know these are for the people who didn't just do what we asked them to do, but they went above what we asked them to do. They went beyond what we asked them to do. We want to thank you. And after that, we line them all up in the back and take a picture. It's a pretty big group because, like I said, it's 50-plus people, but it lets the people know that we appreciate what they do for us. And, when we first started it, we used to give out maybe 10 or 15, but it's grown every year. And it's just our way of showing to our folks that we appreciate what they do for us during the campaign.
Yeah, a couple of things from from my perspective, when I do the trainings, I tell the key workers, my job is to gather all the materials together and to train you, and there's a lot of other things that happen in the campaign, but really you are the heart and soul of the campaign. You are the ones that do the ask. That is the human element of the campaign, and I really instill in them the importance in that we really treasure their presence, and we'll do everything we can to help them be successful. So I think that's important from the front end. Then the other thing, I want to follow up on what Barb said. I think we do the certificates, we have really nice certificates, but I don't think we do as good a job as we could at actually doing the local agency kind of, some kind of gathering where they're thanked and they're passed out. We'll give them to the agency, we'll give them to whoever, the campaign coordinators, but we're not sure that they always do a really good job of making sure that everybody gets acknowledged in a highly personal way, and I think we could do a better job with that. And I think that's what brings people back, is knowing, because let's face it, it's way too often it's a thankless job. Mm-hmm. And it's a job, everybody thinks, the key worker, whatever, the key workers are, and they are the most important element in the campaign. If they don't do their job well, it's going to fall on its face.
They're the key.
We were trying to come up with some creative ways. Last year we were feeling in San Francisco a little out of ideas, and we couldn't have chocolate anymore, and the executive order came out and said no plaques, no gewgaws, and then we got the green challenge and you don't print any paper anymore, and so we're like, oh man, what are we gonna do? So what we did was we linked our key workers and coordinators and LE's appreciation event to another leadership event that we happen to have. I'm with the Federal Executive Board, and we have an annual leadership appreciation event, and all of us tend to have Excellence in Governments or Employee of the Year awards. And so we linked those two things together so that the CFC workers were told, you are among this great leadership team government-wide. You're among the amazing people that do federal mediations, and they do Employee of the Year awards, and they do, EEO events and diversity programs, and you are leaders among all these other amazing leaders. And the spirit that happened out of that event, we gave them cookies, punch, paper certificates, and took their pictures, and you would have thought it was the Academy Awards. I'm telling you, it was just being recognized as the leaders of the community, person by person. Name came up, got their picture taken, were recognized, little story was told about them. It was the personal ask, for all the community to keep recognizing each other and supporting each other as leaders. So it wasn't, here we thought, oh my gosh, there's nothing left we can do. Turned out to be the best thing we ever did.
So if this is about sharing, just to follow up on what she said, if you have an FEB and you have an Excellence in Government program, about 4 years ago, we were included in the Excellence in Government program. So we do our CFC, and we do plaques still, all paid for by the FEB. And they love it. It's top-level folks from the agencies, and we have, probably 30 to 40 awards that we give out. And it's 50% of the Excellence in Government program is CFC acknowledgement, and it happens in the off-season. So it really kind of keeps the ball in the air in play, if you will, for the CFC in May. And it's really, they love it. Everybody loves it. The FEB loves it. The agency heads love it. And especially, I want to say, the key workers and folks that get acknowledged at those events, they absolutely love it. And it is like the Academy Awards for them.
Jump in. How are y'all? I'm Normal Gilchrist from Arkansas. I'm a newbie, so I'm going to go a different direction here because I want to know, let me see some hands of those folks that remember Woodstock. I mean, it's serious. Okay. How many of y'all remember Vietnam? Not heard about it, but remember Vietnam. How many of y'all actually sit down and saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan? Okay? And I asked that question because what I'm hearing is we've done some wonderful things. We've done some great things in the organization, and you got some great ideas. My question is, how are we going to engage those younger folks in the organization? They don't know about Vietnam. They don't know about those things that we know about. And I'm an ex-military, used to be E9 and in the Postal Service. But I will tell you, one of the things that stressed us as command chiefs and all of those is that we had a group of people that came in and they just didn't do things because we asked them to. They asked why. That just messed us up. Nobody ever asked why. You know what I'm saying? So we got people that are asking, young folks that are asking, why should I give? Why? They like my kids. What's in it for me? You know, and so I think we have got to address those issues because we gave because it was part of what we did. And we talk about those top level executives, they gave because they came up through a culture of giving. But we have a younger generation that we have got to show them something. Awards are nice, plaques are nice, coins are nice, but we've got to show them something that gives them incentive to they have a buy-in to the things that we are trying to do. And until we come up with that, I think we're going to have some nice to do things. We're going to have some things that make us feel good, but we've got to do some things that engage those young folks that are going to be our up-and-coming leaders within our organization. If I'm wrong, y'all tell me, but that's where I think the direction we got to be looking for in a session like this, because y'all are all successful. Y'all are all $1 Million Club, you've done some things, but in order for us to stay engaged and keep that, we've got to engage those young executives and those young leaders in our organization.
I agree, and it looks like we got a lineup of people ready to answer your question.
One more thank you to remember or consider, and it is a lot more work for us, but it's the OPM Awards. I know it's much more narrow, that you can't nominate as many people, but it's huge. We nominate teams. We don't just nominate one person. So remember it, but don't do it because it makes it easier on us. We get more recognition that way. No, but even the nominees, the CFC Hero nominees who don't become the CFC Hero get a certificate with a letter from OPM, so it's very meaningful to those who get it, whether it's the Hero Award or the acknowledgement that they were nominated.
Good point, thanks. Got another comment coming?
Yes. John Glenn, I'm a Federation representative from St. Louis, and I think to follow up on Normal's comments was that right now our technique is to tell the donors, look at what we have, look at what we do. And the way you reach millennialists, however you say that, is you find out what's important to them. And then you talk to them about how can I help you meet that objective? Who do you want to help? And it's more of a consultative selling type technique where you're, as opposed to just dumping all your goods on the table and letting them pick from it, you have to find out and make it more personal in a situation like that.
I think that's an excellent comment.
Did you folks hear the presentation at lunch? Everybody was in there, right? What did we talk about? Social media. What was the gentleman's name? I can't see because there's bright light up here, but there you are. Okay. Social media is so important to our young folks. If they can't do anything else, they got an iPhone doing this stuff, you know, they're looking at everything on the television, on the phone, on their DVR.
What'd you say?
Okay. That is what they're hooked to. We have to get more in tune with what they want. Everything they do is online now. Everything.
Yeah, if I can jump in here, because I was
Go right ahead.
thinking about his comment and lunch, and then you just gave me the good setup.
Mhm.
And it's not anything we do, but it was just, I was sitting here brainstorming, trying to think how can we use what we learned at lunch. And I don't know the rules or the ethics, but you know, they talked about recognizing people in their peers at work, but I don't know if there's a way to like post on individual key workers' Facebook page, like from the CFC, thank you for a great job, or maybe like a photo of the certificate they got. Because they might not repost it on their own page, but maybe if we could get them some exposure in their world, even outside of work, it might, I don't know. I just am asking.
Well, I think if you could find them, but it would probably have to be like you personally become their Facebook friend with your own account, and then you could post something. Because I think the way pages are set up, you can't post on like your followers, you can't post on their individual pages. someone correct me if I'm wrong on that.
That's correct.
Yeah. But yeah, if you could become their personal friend on Facebook, you could definitely say, "Hey, this is Bruce, and I'm the CFC director for Intermountain CFC." So. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So she's saying if you, I forgot what you said already. I turned 40 this past year.
It's late. It's time for
Okay, I want to follow up on Norman's comment. About 4 years ago, we started a Young Generations group, and we started a Young Generations leadership team that paralleled our overall CFC leadership team, which is the organization that reports to the LFCC that runs the campaign. So, where the rubber meets the road for the campaign. So that group really stepped up. They started having their own meetings, their own events, created a number of really cool things like a karaoke event, which is just a sold-out event. We make a lot of money on that, but it really generates a lot of interest with the younger generation group. We also use another social media device called Yammer, and they all use it. They all go wild over Yammer. I don't know. I looked at it a couple of times, and I couldn't figure it out. But they use it, and they love it. For 2011, we actually won. This is the Greater Chattanooga Combined Federal Campaign. We actually won the 2011 Innovation Award for creating that young leadership team. So, Norman, we'd be glad to talk to you more about that. But there's no magic. We just picked a person, said, here's what we want you to do. Pick your team and get started. Stay close to us. Come to all of our leadership meetings. Have your own events. Participate in us with the events together jointly. And we work together. We more or less train them by doing. So JT. And I thought it's worked out very well. And for the years of 2010, 2011, and 2012, we exceeded every goal, including participation goals, than we had previous 20 years of the campaign. So it worked. I contribute a lot of that success to that young generation group.
Mary, isn't there some sort of national young federal leaders group? What's it called?
Young government leaders.
Young government leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have local chapters in every state, or how does that?
Yeah.
So we could probably like their page on Facebook or something, and then try to find out who is like in the leadership at our local state and or area. Younggov.org. I'm going to make a note of that in my iPhone.
Good afternoon. I know it's almost break time, so I won't give you a lot of background. I'm Elaine Mitchell. I'm from the National Capital Area. I expressed to my 25-year-old my frustration of young people not coming to our events. And you know what he said? Keep it simple. But also he said, Ma, you have to meet people where they are. We're meeting them where we are or where we have been, so we need to meet them where they are. Thank you.
Where are they?
Good point.
I want to. I just don't know where they are.
That's where you got to be.
If I can say this, I'm going to piggyback on what she just said.
Please do.
It's so kind of funny. A little while ago, when you were asking everyone to raise their hands based on their ages, I couldn't raise my hands. I'm only 34 years old. So I'm looking around the room. I'm like, everyone thinks he's older than I am. So fine. I guess I'm one of those young professionals. Yeah. However, what I began to see, I think that my particular company, United Way, hired me because I was that young person. I do Facebook. I do Twitter. I create my own pages. I do those type of things. So the question is how do we encourage young donors? Well, first of all, like you said, you got to meet them where they are, but also how do you do that? Well, to answer that question, when you go back and look at the history that you just gave as far as who remembers Vietnam and those different type of eras, we don't. Right. We're not speech people. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say it again. We're not speech people. So you can't give us a speech. It's not going to do it. Yeah. What you got to do is actually show us how. And so the way I've gotten young professionals involved into our program is that I actually made them volunteer. We are only going to see it as important when our fingerprints are on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your hands-on, right?
If our hands not on it, we're not going to do anything about it. A speech, numbers, they're good, but they won't help us. And so what we got to have example. And so what it takes is putting the dirt on our hands. This past Saturday, I actually went to an actual event called Project Serve for United Way, but I actually was the one that was shoveling. But there were more young people out there, and I was shoveling with them, and I started talking about CFC. By doing that, because I was shoveling, it's what we call sweat equity, that's when they started saying, okay, I see what you're saying now. By giving their volunteer time, then you can say, okay, now let me educate you about what's going on, and now you can give back. If it's not on their hands, they're not going to give. So if you make it more hand-friendly for them, then you can tell you why your dollars are important too as well.
Thank you.
Good point. Good
No, I didn't go to Woodstock. My parents did.
Okay, we got.
Okay,
Let's see.
I
What
just-
time.
How many?
We got 5 minutes.
Okay.
Before we got to take a
So
break.
real quick, I just thank everybody for all those comments. I really appreciate it. I know you all always tease us about being the big fish, but really, we're a bunch of little campaigns. We're a bunch of campaigns all the size of you all. We don't encourage them to. They don't compare each other against each other. They run individually. So we've got $1 million campaign over here and a $500,000 campaign over here. It's just a whole bunch of little campaigns. So everything you said could work in one of my campaigns or the other. Well, one thing we did do this year to celebrate the key worker was we did Key Worker of the Week. And so we had them all submitting to us key worker information about key workers that we thought that they thought had done something recognizable, and then we posted that on Facebook. So that's how we brought in the social media piece. And celebrated our key workers. And it didn't take off as big as we would like it, but we're not ready to put it to bed. We're probably going to do it again next year. But Key Worker of the Week, and they kind of gave us their story. We would post it on Facebook, and it seemed to work. But again, thank you all so much for all your comments. They're useful.
Thank you.
I don't know if this is still working very well. My name is Christine. I'm with the National Capital Area, and I'm a member of an organization called the Emerging Leadership Council for the CFC NCA. And we are basically our mission, our goal is to kind of work with the PCFO to recommend things, and also work with loan executives, campaign managers to recommend ways to further engage the next generation of emerging leaders. And I have about 1 million ideas I could tell you, but I know I have 2 minutes. So what a couple things I'm trying to do at my agency is one, clear up the myths and misconceptions about giving to charity. And not just giving to charity, but also giving specifically to the CFC, and why that's more effective a lot of times than giving directly to the charities. And give them the statistics, give them the information. You can look it up on OPM, you can find out. I did a presentation where I looked up, the percentage of homeless people in Washington, D.C. And once you give them the facts, you can also find out the average federal worker makes about $78,000, and that's, I think, in the richest 6% of people in the world. And if you put the statistics in front of people and really put that in front of them, they're not going to take the time to do that themselves and look that up themselves. But that's one thing you can do. Also, I'm trying to rebrand campaign work as a leadership development opportunity. I know we've heard that a lot, and I really support that. I'm trying to work with the leadership development organization through my human capital office to kind of find ways that we can integrate the two and really reimagine campaign work as more of a leadership development opportunity, and offer next generation things that they couldn't get otherwise. FaceTime with senior leaders is a great reason to work on the campaign, a great incentive, but also a good award opportunity. So I have millions of other ideas. If I'm happy to talk to anybody.
You're still welcome to talk after the break is over. So we want to hear from you. So thank you. That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's take a 15-minute break, and we'll be back here at about 3:45.
Hi, Rama.
So I want to applaud you for going up there, because I think that's huge. But I think you should expound on some of the happy hour events, some of the events that the ELC, the Executive Leadership Council has, and what they have planned, and some of the things that you all have done in the past that have shown successful to this crowd of folks that currently they're having, a lot of folks that are coming in that are new, that are young, and how to get them involved, because a lot of them they're disengaged, and they're in either their phones or Blackberries, And so I think that's one of the things that you should expound on, and that's going to be useful for them.
So what Rama's talking about is the Emerging Leadership Council for the CFC NCA. We formed about a year or so ago, and our main goal is to do exactly that. We work very closely with our amazing PCFO, and through that I became appointed on the LFCC. And so we kind of bridge that gap and also work with the loan executives, and everyone's been very responsive. And we're still kind of getting our feet wet because we all are emerging leaders, so we don't know quite what we're doing, but we're really trying to kind of work these things out and get there. And we've gone out to different events. We've spoken to like the DoD campaign managers. We held a micro volunteering event. It was kind of like an experiment where we had a happy hour. We didn't pay for anything. It was at a bar, but it was not it wasn't affiliated, but we had 4 charities come out, United Way and a couple others. Lavina and her folks were very supportive, and everyone's been very supportive. And what we had them do was offer a micro volunteering opportunity, which is essentially an activity that you can perform in a minute or less or so, and it's a volunteering opportunity. So you can accomplish 4 different tasks within, say, 5 minutes, and you've volunteered, you're hanging out with your friends, you're at a bar, you're buying your own drinks and your own food, and you're having a good time, learning about the CFC, and so that's an event that we had that Rama mentioned, the idea of micro volunteering, and we'd like to expand upon all these things, but thanks for that. So I wish it was my idea, but it wasn't. It was actually started by an organization that became a website called Sparked, SPARKED, if you look it up. It's a website where the idea is that everyone spends all this time on their smartphones on Facebook and Twitter every day. So what if instead of spending those hours of their day on their phone, they were actually performing these micro tasks, these small tasks for charities, like helping them create a logo or proofreading something, or, I mean, the possibilities are really, really endless, and it could be literally anything that takes less than a minute or 5 minutes or so. It's not that specific. But this website offers, you can sign up, you can tell them what your skills are, and they give you opportunities that charities actually post, and you can connect with one of them and offer your expertise. But it's not something that takes forever. It's something that's short because, as you know, our generation likes instant gratification. We like things quick, easy, fast. That's just the way we are. We're inundated with information constantly. So but it's just micro volunteering is the idea. So I wanted to be able to apply that to the CFC and apply it somehow to what we're doing. And I try to look at different trends in philanthropy and volunteering and giving and all of these things to try to figure out innovative and fun and creative ways to attract people like myself, but others, and that's where the micro volunteering idea came from.
Hi, am I on? Can you hear me? I'm Tony Taylor. I'm with NorCal, and I wanted to elaborate. You were talking about the leadership program. When I worked for Social Security, I was one of the ones who started the Career and Leadership Development Program in the Seattle region for Social Security Administration, and the reason why I bring this up is because I finally got a chance to see, when I went away from government this past campaign in the San Francisco region, that there was a young lady that they put in the leadership program, and what they do there is, like you said, that you go to classes. Well, they take a step further. You're away for a year, and you have to do one stint for 120 days outside. It's outside the box. And so she got a chance to do a leadership. That's what she did in her leadership program. She was a loan exec. She was one of the best loan execs I've seen in a long time. And I bowed my head down to her because I was a part of that program when I was working for Social Security. And Francine knows her, who works for the FEB. She was excellent. I mean, I just started a couple months ago, and she just had her hands rolled up. She had everything laid out. I said, wow, I hope she comes back next year. And I didn't know she was in a leadership program until she said, well, I don't get to do this because I worked outside the box and I had to do something different. And so they put me in as a loan exec. And she said, I learned so much. And what happens with that is afterwards, after they do all of that, 90% of the people, more than 90% of the people get promoted. And when they work outside the box and they do something like that and see, somebody talked about above and beyond, she went above and beyond. And if I have anything to do with it when they have that ceremony, I'm definitely going to say something because she was fantastic. And I hope she gets promoted out of it.
I have a question for you. You talked about trying to educate or re-educate younger federal employees about what the CFC is and why they should care. What channels did you pick to do that, and what steps did you take to start that process? And was it successful, or is it kind of in the middle still of an ongoing process? Or?
It was sort of a grassroots thing, I guess. I know that myself, if someone came up to me and said, will you give me money for this? No, I'm not going to give you money unless you explain why, and what it's for, what it's going to do. I need the facts, and they better be right, because I can Google them right now and check and make sure. And so we need the facts of the matter. And so I did my own research to figure out, well, if somebody asks me why, can I answer that? If someone asks me for the facts, can I give them to them? And so I did some research to figure out, and I started with why give to charity at all, and I found some amazing organizations and I found out that in developing countries, you can cure blindness for like $10. You can cure someone's blindness. And in this country, we take it a lot of times for granted. But a lot of times, a lot of children die in other countries from preventable diseases. Something as simple as a malaria net, or a mosquito net that prevents malaria, that's something that we take for granted here because we don't have to worry about that. And so putting it into a perspective that people can kind of realize, and I was just telling Steve that our generation wants to give. We care. It's just we need to be reminded. And I think it's really important. You just have to remind them. And then the support is amazing, and they want to help. And so that was one of the things that I looked at is why give to charity, things like that. And then also why give to the CFC and I looked into the research as far as the overhead costs. And a lot of times, and it's cheaper to give through the CFC because it eliminates the administrative costs. The charities get one check instead of having to process a ton of different checks. So there are several different reasons, and I wish I had my notes because I can't remember numbers, but there's a website, givingwhatwecan.org, where you can actually calculate how rich you are compared to the rest of the world's population. And it's pretty eye-opening. I just started my federal government career, and I think I'm in something like the richest 12% of the world's population, or something crazy like that. And I said that to our team of directors at my agency, and not to be rude or to call them out or anything, but just to remind them and just to remind people how fortunate you are, how fortunate we are. And I think that people are genuinely good. They want to help. They want to give. It's just about reminding.
I'd just like to comment.
I'm sorry, we got more questions for you.
Some of the questions have been, how do we engage millennials? My name's Rick. I'm with the Honolulu Pacific. I'm a LE. A third of my workforce is millennials. A fourth of my workforce is retirement eligible. And the key to both of them is meeting them, talking to them, and finding out what's in here. Because whether I'm talking to my guy that's got 3 kids in college and he's 60, or whether I'm talking to my young kid who's just turned 21 and is now legal to drink, the only thing I'm changing is the topic of the conversation. The old guy's talking about college, the young guy's talking about what he did over the weekend with his other friends. And so all I'm doing is, it's a relationship. CRM, customer relationship management is what I look at, because they're all my customers. They're all my employees. And my job is to keep them happy so that they stay there working for me and I can get them promoted, and I do whatever I can to help them out. And so it's not some magic potion, and it's not something that, well, if they, the question about, do you remember this stuff from back in time? It's about learning about your employees. And I want to second the gentleman that commented about, yes, they want to know why. Our generation, we were just taught, well, okay, you give, and once you get to giving, you just keep on giving. That was our culture. Their culture is, if I got to go out to the basketball court on the weekend and they kick my ass, well, then they kick my ass. But you know what? I'm getting to know them. And I don't have a problem telling them why. So there is no magic potion to it. There is no magic pill. It's just get to know your people and get comfortable having that personal conversation with somebody that's 30 years your junior. And don't be so afraid of it.
Thank you. I'll actually add to that a little bit when you're talking about getting to know your donors, because, yes, that is absolutely critical. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. My name's Steve. I'm with Heart of the Midlands Combined Federal Campaign. I'm a PCFO based in Omaha. The differences that you'll find when you get to know your younger donors is that, and this is regardless of the avenue and how they give or what organization they're giving to at the current moment, is what you'll find is that millennials are really interested in the issue. They're not interested in the cause. Or excuse me, they're not interested in the organization. So, like me, I'm really passionate about education. So I'm going to give my dollars to exactly the organization that's doing really well in education, and it's about that transparency piece that Christine talked about. That's why we want to see the numbers, see how you're doing, see the impact you're making right away, because we want to understand how you're doing. We want to give to the best organizations that is affecting that issue and the cause that we're really interested about. We're not dedicated to a specific organization, so to speak. You have people that have been giving to United Ways or, other, humane societies, for 40 years, or the same organization through the CFC for 40 years. Millennials don't think that way. Mm-hmm. They're gonna think about the issue that they're really passionate about. So you got to keep that in mind when you're talking about them, because yes, it is exactly about getting to know those donors, but you got to keep those subtle differences in mind when you're talking about, when you're cultivating that specific relationship.
Yeah, and me personally, I want to donate to a charity that I'm going to get the biggest bang for my buck, so to speak. So I want to look at overhead. I want to look at Charity Navigator. I want to find out, what they're doing with their resources. I want to know their values, their principles. I want to know everything. If I'm going to be giving them, when I just give my money, I'm giving myself, because I don't have a lot of money, and so I'm putting my heart into it, and I want to make sure that I'm investing in something that I really, really care about. And you can find out all of that stuff these days on the internet. Charity Navigator, GuideStar, and that's another value proposition of the CFC that I like to talk about, is that we talked all about audits today and all of these things, these painstaking processes we go through to make sure that donors can trust CFC charities.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tony Cross. I'm sorry I didn't give you my name from the very beginning, but my name is Tony Cross. I'm from the United Way of the CSRA, which is Augusta, Georgia, home of the Masters. All right. So I kind of want to give you a little bit of information, give you a little bit more supporting feedback in regards to my comments a little earlier. I echo what Kristen and also what Steve have said too as well. Just to make a very, very funny point here, I just told Kristen, I said, weren't you on the CFC video? She said, yeah. It's also because I look at videos and because I'm a young person. If you didn't know that, she is on the CFC video from this year campaign. Yeah, I had to say that. So, but here's the point, and I was talking to a lot of some of my coworkers here as well. Steve is right. We don't really look at issue. We don't really look at all those different things. We look at the issue. One major thing that you can do right now, something I did just last Saturday. Just this past Saturday. My boss was asking me to do something to get young professionals in right now. It wasn't over time. She's saying right now. Okay, fine. Let me do this. Just this past Saturday, one of my CFC agencies did a project serve event, which was to tear down homes or demolish old homes so you can revitalize that community. That's what we were doing. Well, I asked some of the young professionals at this company, which is Department of Energy, SRS. If you don't believe me, I have it on my phone. I'll show you on Facebook. All right. I asked them to come in and help me. These 10 young professionals came in with me Saturday morning from 8 to 12, this past Saturday morning, and they helped me work. They were volunteering, which goes back to my point. If you put their fingerprint on it, then you can tell them why it's important. If you put their hands on it, then you can tell them why it's important. We'll take a speech. We'll take the numbers. But what's most important is showing us why it is important. I was raised in a generation where I heard John F. Kennedy's speech. I heard Dr. King's speech. But you know how? Through a video, through commercials, through someone telling me that. But that didn't work all the time. I had to have someone show me why it was important by putting my hands on it. We are on hands people. And so what you got to do is find the efforts where you can help them to volunteer, and that way you can tell them why it's important, and then watch them become a part of your effort. That's what it's all about. My CEO is asking me right now to join a focus group on teaching them how to start a cell phone app for United Way. Why? Because that's one of the quickest ways that we communicate. That's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to build an app just for United Way, so when they press the button on their phone, it downloads everything for them. Okay, but it downloads everything for them. That is a great way to encourage and also to involve young donors and to tell them in your key worker trainings, hey, listen, we have an app for you. Press the app. It links into everything, your website, your forms, everything that you're looking for to give to them. And then they can say, okay, guess what? While I'm doing whatever I'm doing, if I'm at home washing dishes or whatever I'm doing, I just hit my app on my phone and it goes right there for me.
That's great. I also want to elaborate further on that on two things. You know, he's absolutely right when you're talking about putting your finger on it. And I see that materializing in three ways, and I call these the 3 T's: time, talent, and treasure. That's what young leaders want, is time, talent, and treasure. They want to know how they can utilize those 3 avenues to really make an impact. That's how they want to get engaged. And I consider engagement on the same level as philanthropy when I talk about young donors and millennials. Philanthropy isn't about old rich people sitting in their office smoking their cigar, writing a check and letting it loose. You know, it's more about getting out there and being hands-on, getting your fingerprint on it, learning how they can make an impact, not only volunteering but with their money, and also how they can really get their professional abilities down in the weeds in terms of those, again, issues that they're really talking about. Then the second part is when you're talking about videos, what I find that's really great and engaging myself, and I'm sure, Christine, you can agree with this, infographics. They're awesome. Use them nonstop.
Did you say infographics?
Infographics.
I love infographics.
Infographics.
True
Oh my
story.
gosh.
Yeah.
True story.
What?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Good stuff, yeah.
And okay, you young guys, correct me if I'm wrong. An infographic is an illustrated type picture that with facts and information, but there's an illustration involved that draws you into it. So I wish I could think of a really good example. Maybe you can.
It's like a picture of facts. I mean, it's like charts, people, just exactly right. Just an illustration. It's a way of easily looking at something that's visual because. I don't know if you know the picture superiority effect, but people remember things like 70% better if you show them a picture of it. That's unrelated. But it's kind of that thing. It's showing a picture of data because statistics and numbers and spreadsheets of data don't make as much of an impact when you put a picture behind them, illustration.
Exactly.
Okay, before you guys get into something real quick, I understand that you're telling us how to get the things that interest the young people in, but when I am recruiting and I'm looking for your clone amongst my people, I want to know if you can summarize, or maybe in the top 10, of what you see, what we do can help you develop your skills so that we can be able to help you do that effectively while we're helping ourselves. Does that make sense?
Kind of. I mean, I would say a lot of times someone at my level, and I speak personally, I feel daunted by speaking my ideas. I don't want to step on toes. I want to know my place, and I just, if you're a leader, ask. Just if you see someone you want to know their opinion. Someone I think in this room, very wise, told me a good leader is someone who makes other people feel very comfortable around them, and I find that when I feel if a leader someone superior just asks me, I am much more willing. I'm not going to go knock on their door and break down their door and start spewing all of my ideas.
Oh, that was it. Let's say the same thing.
If I might, I'd like to add another caveat to the discussion. My name is Niles Floyd. I'm retired healthcare. I'm a CFC director at the Shoals area, PCFO, and I am in Alabama. And the question I've got is, we've been sitting here listening to a lot of different speakers and new concepts and new things that are coming at us. But one of the things you're looking at is suddenly now we're going top down, no boundaries, universal giving. So how do we get, the question becomes, how do you get these young millennial workers engaged when you're not holding normal campaigns, when you're not traditional in what you're doing? Now, that's going to work for a couple more years, but at some point, it's going top down, no boundaries. So one of the things, just a suggestion, one of the things we're looking at, we don't have an answer for it, but one of the things we're looking at is inbound marketing. So you say, okay, we're going to use inbound social marketing. So if you use inbound social marketing, how do you get the CFC concept in front of those millennial workers so that when they Google, it's on the first page of Google.com? I mean, that's what we're really faced with. There's going to have to be some way, some innovative way to reach those people that can, 1 month after they're hired, can go online and can sign up. And they can universally give, not through you, not through some traditional method, but a whole new method. So somewhere down the road, in 2 to 3 years, we're going to have to change how we're doing things. And I don't have the answer for it, but I see the problem. And I know that at United Way of Northwest Alabama, where I work, we're already looking at how do you get United Way of Northwest Alabama and things that we're doing and things that our member agencies are doing, how do we get that on the first page of Google and keep it there? Thank you.
Well, I mean, I think that kind of relates to something I think Steve or somebody might have said, that you go to where they are. And if that's the homepage of Google, maybe, but go physically. I mean, you know where your captive audience is, They have to go through orientation. When you first join a federal agency, you have to go through orientation. You have to sit there and listen to all these things. Why not talk about CFC at the same time? They're going to be in these mandatory training classes. They're going to be at their staff meeting. Go to these places, and that's what I do. I tried to go to as many staff meetings as I could because I knew I had a captive audience. They had to be there. Their boss was there, and they had to listen to me for like 5 minutes.
No, that's a good answer.
Arch McKinley, I'm the executive director in St. Louis. I've been working with my son, who also designs those 4-second video ads. Arch McKinley at St. Louis, FEB. I've been working with my son, who's also 20-something, and he's the one who designs those YouTube ads you want to skip over in the beginning when you click on them. So he and I have this discussion quite a bit. And part of that discussion he and I talked about, and has led me to believe that we can in fact embed within what we already do many of the attributes that you're talking about. Part of what you all have been experiencing or explaining is really the user profile that we need to design into this, and that's very valuable, but we have to shape it that way, but we still have to keep the user profile for the paper folks. But the idea is that inside the CFC description, where the charity describes what they're doing, you almost have to word doodle that which is where you put the priority words up front. You have to include in the link. The link has to show where they are. You go to their webpage. We have to train actually the charities to include what they're asking for, or have some way that within the app, so to speak, of the charity lookup on our website, so that they can find it with a couple of clicks. And you have to think about it from their experience level, and you can do that by putting the hyperlinks into it, so that just like they talked about at lunch, the experience is going to be different. You know, my age group, we're willing to just take the weekend and research everything. Not them. They want to just click on it, see it, and show the facts. So all the things that were talked about, you can embed either in the description of the charity or in some other links that you have as far as the issues. What is the issue? Many a times they put their mission statement in there and they never tell you what the issue is they're trying to solve. So a lot of this is going to be training the charities on what to put into that to make it the hyperlink so that it does show up on Google, because those are the issues that are searched. So those are the kinds of things you can change right away just in that description of what you put in your CFC description. The next thing is to go for the micro volunteering. That's where when you click through to that charity, they tell you what you can do if you have an hour, if you have 15 minutes. They have to learn how to do that to get that help. So it means that CFC may not bring them dollars, but it may bring them volunteers. Two different things that we really haven't pushed in the past. We've been concentrating on getting donors to give me something out of your money. But in the new concepts, it's either money or the talent. So if you have that, and again, train the charity to do that. Am I off base here?
No, I think you're right on.
Okay. So what you can do to help us is write out, you're familiar with the use cases and the way that you put up the user experience so we can profile that user. That would really help, and then have somebody else be able to decompose that into actionable changes within the books, within the descriptions, within the links, and then we can give a short one-page checklist of, does your charity webpage have these things in it? Do you have a Foursquare? Does it show where you're doing your work? Instead of just telling us in the application, we did these things last year, put in there the links to and the map and the geolocate on all those places so that they can put it into it, and we just copy and paste it into either their webpage or into our search routines. That's what we need.
To go back to Arts, if I'm saying your name correctly, to go back to your first comment, I think you're exactly on it. Following trends, I mean, if you take a look at Google, Yahoo, any one of these search engines, first thing they do is when you're putting anything into those search engines, they look for keywords. Keywords, they help you get to your issue or get to your thing, your concern, or whatever you're looking for. They help them get to them very quicker. If you're putting in all type of words, then it's going to give you what it thinks you're trying to look for. But if you put in those keywords, it's going to help you get to that thing quicker. Well, think about that process when you're talking to young professionals, young donors. Use the keywords or the key issues that they're dealing with, and it helps you to ascertain their concern or talk to them about what's going on, so you can talk about the CFC and things of that nature. Keywords are just that. They help you just deal with that thing a little quicker. Let's just think about it. A lot of our young professionals, and I was telling this a little earlier, a lot of our young professionals come from homes and environments and neighborhoods where they didn't have a whole lot. Some of our young professionals who are the 30 and the 30 and below, or younger rather, they didn't come from families that were structurally like ours, or those who are older. They didn't have a father. They didn't have a mother, or their families weren't always together as traditional families are. So you got to use that's a key component. That can be used as a key word. Here are some of the key concerns that you can talk about when you're talking about trying to engage them into your campaigns. Because guess what? Some of our campaigns deal with those type of issues. And so you can use those things to talk about why you need to be involved in this, because our campaign is involved in helping persons like yourself who's been through these issues. And guess what? Now you can give back to it too as well. I think the other issue Art was talking about is just dealing with those key components and how you go about doing that. And you have to do that. I think the Facebook pages, I think the apps, those are just great key components of how you do those things. And if you do not, then you're going to be missing a wide range of people that you can work with. But if you start using them and start embracing that component, and then watch them get more involved, sweat equity is a term I use now. And how I get young professionals, sweat equity. If they don't sweat for it, it's not going to be important for them. If they're not sweating, it's not going to be important for them. And so that's what I'm using. I'm using sweat equity as a way of getting them involved so I can teach them the CFC. I am 34 years old. I may not be as young as Christine or young as Steve. However, I'm still a young person at heart. So
That's what counts.
That's what counts. Yeah, that's what counts. Yeah, yeah, that's what counts. So again, I understand the traditional values and the traditional things, traditional ways of doing things. Yes, I do. I'm also a preacher, so guess what? I can say a speech, I can pray and do all those kind of things too as well. But if I was out there in front of us young professionals doing a speech, you know what they'd be doing? Looking on their phone. So I cannot always use that as my way to attract them. I got to use other different avenues, and if I understand that, okay, I understand traditional ways of doing things, but I got to flip the script just a little bit. Use what they're going through as a catalyst, or what they've been through as a catalyst to get them attracted to, so they'll become engaged in it, and then watch how they'll say, "I'm a part of it. I support it because I came out of it. Now I want to help somebody else." Yeah.
Let's go to Tim, and then I have a question I'd like to ask. So.
Thanks, Bruce. Tim Smith, King County, CFC, Seattle, home of the world champion Seattle Seahawks.
Woo!
Turn the mic off, please.
I got together with our chair from the last year's campaign, 2013, and we talked about how we can develop new donors. So we instituted a subcommittee on our planning group called New Donor Strategies, and we have a real energetic young man who can really relate to his generation, and we brainstormed a lot of ideas. We came up with let's start tracking volunteer hours amongst our federal employees and award them. So our planning committee agreed we'd create a new criteria for our awards. And that's based on volunteer hours, both individual and collective agency volunteer hours.
How do you track it, Tim?
Say again?
How do you track the hours?
We have a tool, just a handout that we distribute with our coordinators and key workers, and encourage employees to put down, if they're volunteering for a nonprofit, to let us know who it is, how many hours they devote to that, and so forth, and then we'll calculate all that at the end of the year when we're doing our awards selections, and we're going to award those volunteers. But we know as fundraisers that volunteers give 3 times more than a regular donor does. So if we can develop those young volunteers, we know they're going to be donors for a long, long time. And we are creating volunteer opportunities for them. We're directing them to websites of whatever their interest might be, whether it's the environment or animals or healthcare or food banks or whatever it might be that touches them. And we think that it's an early strategy, so I don't have a lot of stats to report to you, but I think it's going to be a positive program in the coming years. And if you'd like to have that tool we use to track those folks, I'll be happy to get it out to you.
Maybe we could post it on CFC Today.
I'll send it to CFC Today, and they can get it up there.
Thanks.
But we're looking forward to this thing developing into a new source of donors amongst the young folks, and we think it's going to be a pretty exciting program.
Yeah, Tim is exactly right. Those volunteers that work with me on Saturday, they were able to track 4 hours. And during that 4 hours time, what I began to notice as I was helping them and talking to them, they start telling me the stories of what they've gone through. And what we're looking for is stories anyway. And so basically, by using this new component to get them involved, they start giving me the traditional stuff I was looking for. Right. They start giving me stories. And so now when they go back to work and they're talking about what we did on Saturday, they can also give their coworkers the stories. So in the fall, when I'm campaigning at DOE, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to remind them, guess what you did in the spring? Or in the fall, at the beginning of the year, I'm going to pull on that. You gave your time, now give your money.
Yes.
To help this agency.
Right, and we're going to do little video vignettes from personal testimonials from these young volunteers and post them up on our Facebook page.
Oh,
so
cool.
we think it'll start really rolling here this coming year.
So I have a question, and it's about that is excellent. So, thanks, Tim. It's about websites and even social media. Can the three of you talk about what draws you in to a website when you first visit it, and so kind of likes and dislikes? What are you looking for, and what turns you off when you get to a new website?
Thanks. Everyone attended the social media lunch earlier today, and what you'll notice about Twitter and Facebook is, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, so don't take this as the gospel for anything right now. And so what you notice about Twitter and Facebook is that compared to websites that were really spearheaded out, 8 years ago, is you can scroll on them. So it's okay to not have everything in that one screen area now. When you redevelop, if you're looking at redeveloping your website, don't be afraid to put more information and be okay to scroll, because what's happened is that my generation has just become accustomed to that. I'll scroll all the way down if I want to. Now, again, the key is about putting your fingerprint on it and making sure it has an impact. That information needs to be impactful as well. Don't just necessarily make it filler info. It has to be very much impactful information. What are the benefits of volunteering? What are you going to get out of it? Leadership development, things like that. Giving, accountability standards, transparency, all sorts of stuff. Whatever information you can get that's really worth their time to read. Because again, if you're looking at Twitter, those sentences are 140 characters long, and shorter Facebook updates are the ones that get read the most. So you want to make it sweet, concise. You can scroll, infographics, really, really doll it up with those types of strategies. I know that's really, really high level, but it's a place to start getting the creative juices flowing.
Engaged so that they're looking at your website, and your website you're trying to get into Google on the first page or as close as you can get to the first page. But how often does that information need to change to keep them engaged month after month after month?
Well, it's great question, but I think she raised that issue at the lunch too as well, that it has to be monitored, and it has to be monitored pretty closely, and you're going to have to monitor it at least twice a week, maybe a little bit more, or maybe even twice a week, maybe once every other week, just to make sure that you're engaging that audience. But also, as you're engaging that audience, make sure that you are, when you're doing your infographics or you're writing down different blurbs or hashtagging, whatever you're doing, make sure that those keywords and those pictures have them involved in it. They have to see themselves in it. I'll be very honest with you. I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings here, but I'm not going to look at a website full of seasoned people all the time. I'm not. After a while, it's going to become boring because it's not attracting to my eye. Okay, seasoned saints. How about that? Okay. But it's not attracting to my eye. But what's going to attract me is those things that if I see a fellow young person, a 34-year-old or 25-year-old, and they're out here doing this, and I see it right there, and I see a little short blurb about it, okay. Also, you can't write a full paragraph on it, because I'm not going to read a full paragraph. I'm not.
I don't have the attention span for that.
Amen. I'm just not going to do it, yeah.
And I just wanted to say, be creative. Echoing what she said at the luncheon, which I thought was really spot on. Research, knowyourmeme.com. I go there all the time because I want to understand what kids these days are talking about. All this stuff I see, what are they talking about? What's so funny about this? And then implement something. One thing. Put it up there. My favorite message that we tried to do with our CFC was Grumpy Cat related. Something about Grumpy Cat not having I don't know, I don't remember, but just something that catchy, because then if for no other reason, that will make them remember, and it will make them connect instead of just reading give to the CFC this year. It'll make them remember, they'll connect, they'll engage. And it's like she said at the luncheon, if you get your users of social media to actually engage in the conversation, they're doing your work for you. I mean, ask questions, say something like, what would you rather, A or B? Get people to weigh in. And then they're going to be arguing with each other. They're going to be talking to each other, being like, I know, I don't know, And basically, you just sit there and watch the conversation and make sure nobody says something inappropriate, And that's an easy way to just engage people, pull them in by asking questions and just start the conversation. And then it'll go along by itself.
They want to be involved.
That's it.
That's the bottom line of it. They want to be involved in a three-dimensional manner. They just don't want to give. And also just keep in mind a little bit that this is still very new stuff. This isn't necessarily going to be set in stone, and things are going to continue changing and going to continue to be fleshed out as millennials become the dominant generation in the workforce, and it will happen eventually. So watch out.
Once we're dead.
Once
all of us
That's
see them
right.
once they're dead.
And I'll wear that label proud.
Say it, Steve. Say it. Say it.
Yeah. So again, this is everything that we're talking about is extremely new. We're not the experts, and we are just as much eager to learn about it as you are. So these questions are great. Keep them up. And, again, a lot of this stuff, we are also just at the tip of the iceberg here, and we're just as interested and enthusiastic about taking a deeper dive when that opportunity arises.
And remember, you were once a millennial, too.
Yeah.
Remember that. There was a time at Woodstock when you were probably maybe 20 years old, and that was not your issue at that time, or you had something else going on that was more important than that for you. And so you wanted to see a change, or maybe you were a part of Woodstock and you were a part of that because you wanted to make a change for a reason. So what attracted you to Woodstock? It's the same thing that's going to attract us to get a part of the CFC campaign. Same thing. I hope not getting high. I hope not.
Okay, we have a question here. Let's take that question.
Beverly Arnold, Heart of Alabama, CFC. I am the mother of a couple of millennials.
Good for you.
God bless you.
And I agree. Everything I'm hearing from you is what I see from them as well. They only want to contribute if they see the impact. But how do we communicate that impact when we have, for example, my campaign is a 30-county campaign area with 2 staff members working CFC. So how do I get that impact communicated to these young donors who want to see it and want to be involved? One of the things that we do a local campaign video. Last year we had a young lieutenant who was in the Army who didn't necessarily, I don't know if he gave or not through the CFC, but he volunteered at one of our local charitable organizations. So we put him in the video talking about how you can get involved. And then, of course, we put this video on our website, which no young people go to.
It's because you have no infographics.
And we do have a Facebook page, but from what I hear from my children, Facebook is gone. They have removed their account. What is the new one? Instagram is photos, but what are we doing? Just constantly posting photos of CFC activities? And how do we get you to follow that? That's my biggest thing, is that I've got the Facebook. I understand Instagram. I understand hashtags. I understand all these things. I have young adult children who are unseasoned and boring, and who educate their mom and say that's not cool anymore, Mom. And so I try to stay on top of the newest things. But how do we, once I understand that, get these young people to follow our Instagram or to follow our Twitter account?
Well, be creative. I mean, you don't know how many weird commercials I see every day that just doesn't connect with me, but it connects with somebody. So it's okay, even if you put something weird out and, it doesn't connect. I mean, things change so quickly in the information online world that nobody's going to remember that. And then one time you connect, you really make a connection, and that's okay. And B, empower your own connect with emerging leaders, talk to them, sit down and ask them and say, hey, you know, do you want to get more involved? And have them do your work for you and just empower them by giving them, say, you know, I'm going to support you. I will, you know, answer your questions, whatever you need to know, but you connect with, because you connect best with who your own age group, and so empower them and make them feel confident enough to take a risk of forming something themselves and kind of doing their own thing.
I wish I elaborated on this further, you know, about the whole time, talent, treasure, whole aspect of that. But again, what Christine mentioned, what she's really getting at here is that millennials want an organic approach to their engagement. I'm working on a young leaders program, and what I'm finding out is that I can't pick the issue that they're going to have to work on. They're going to pick it themselves, and they're going to go out and they're going to creep around their networks, and they're going to get their friends interested because it's a great mission to be involved in. They got a great vision. They know what they want to achieve down the road, and that's what they're going to work for. But it needs to be organic. It's just like what Christine said. They're going to go out and do that work themselves. Don't tell the millennials or your children, you know, so to speak, in exactly what they need to do or what they need to work on. Have them make that decision, because then they're going to feel empowered to carry that torch themselves, and that's going to be really, really critical.
Yeah, and I think going back to what Christine said too as well, she said, A, be creative. And I honestly, in listening to you, I think that you are trying. I think you are being creative, not trying. You are being creative. You said you have 2 staff and you have 30 different counties. Well, in being creative, when the creativity in doing that is taking the 2 staff and each person can try to create some subgroups or some subcommittees within those 3 counties of young professionals to get all them to get to somehow to get them all together to get their ideas out. You know, one thing you just said, you have 3 kids who are millennials, right? One's not. Okay. Well, the other 2 are. Well, I'm pretty sure that when they're saying, "Mom, that ain't cool," I'm pretty sure that they're kind of talking like, "Look, your mom is going. What is she doing over here?" They're talking. They're talking about their issue. They're talking about what's going on. It's only they're very close to age too as well. So they're talking about it. So maybe taking the 2 staff that you're working with and creating one staff go to the 15 over here, the other person go to 15 over here, and create some subgroups of young professionals to bring it all together, and that way they can report back to you. These are the issues. This is what's going on. This is also what they would like to as well.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes, so let's take the last 2 questions and answers to those, and then wrap it up if that's okay.
Okay, one of the things that we do in St. Louis that we've done for a long time is charity fairs. We do big charity fairs. One of our charity fairs last year, we had 140 charities at. Now, my question to you is, younger folks that are in the workforce that are able to attend those charity fairs and can interact with those charities and find out volunteer opportunities. And there's a huge variety: environment, food pantries, shelters, you name it, they're out there. Do you think, is that an effective way? Because the whole thing about being 3-dimensional, we've talked an awful lot about electronic communications and websites, and to me, there's nothing better than to be able to talk to somebody from a charity and hear and ask them questions. What is it that you do? What kind of volunteer opportunities do you have? Does that resonate with you guys?
I think it would a little bit. You know, I have never attended one, so again, I'm kind of in that same. But I mean, if it would have to provide some information that I necessarily can't. Again, that whole going to speak with somebody that I can't get on my phone by accessing your website. So I have a feeling you would have to funnel, at least, and I'm kind of shooting from the hip here, funnel these younger donors to the charity fairs through those electronic means.
I mean, a lot of times it's discovery. This is the first time people have no idea that these charities even exist. So they meet somebody, then they get a little interest, then they go to the website, then they might actually go do a volunteer opportunity. And we know we've had some success, but what I'm not clear about is it working with your age group?
I would go if it offers me the opportunity to meet some really interesting people.
Exactly. I would go if I knew that it was some form of resource for me to develop. I'll be honest with you, using the word charity may not be the best word, because charity doesn't always sound like something I'm going to be going to where I can learn and receive some resources. I can receive some resources, but what am I really going to get from this? So maybe changing the verbiage up, maybe I don't know, a development fair. I don't know, something, yeah.
I was going to say one thing that you could try and see how it works is add an activity. Ask the charities to bring some sort of activity, writing letters to soldiers, I don't know, something. I mean, whether it's online, electronic, or actual hands-on, and then, you know, promote the activity. And if you get them engaged and again, be creative and encourage charities to come up with creative and innovative ideas, because I think the charities are a lot of times spot on with that as well. And they have ideas as far as things are just waiting for that opportunity.
Yeah, you have to get them involved to be impactful somehow in some shape or form. You can't just get them. They're not going to be interested in coming to gather information. There has to be a higher level to it. If I want information, I'll go to your website.
Right. Right.
Or yeah.
When we were coming in and we had all the different vendors down at the bottom down there, one of the gentlemen down there was giving out lunch boxes. One of the vendors was giving out lunch boxes. Well, before I can get a lunch box, I had to take a little cushion ball and knock down all these bottles. And I thought it was a great way of getting me over there, because obviously I just would have got my lunch box. Thank you.
Exactly. Even if it's not related, I mean, it's just getting them there, getting that attraction, that draw.
Hey guys, Rick Roble again from San Antonio, home of
who?
Rick Roble. No, and actually, I'd like to thank the panel here for this. I'd like to thank the panel for this trans-generational hashtag season, hashtag young cheeky bastards discussion. And I'd like to point out for Charlie here, with your new revised panel, you are much, much older than you were when we started the first part of this year. No, Charlie is pretty old right now.
Yeah, he's seasoned.
I'd like to respond that for those of you who get the opportunity to be on a panel again, just barf up some stuff on slides, but don't really pay any attention. Find some young people in the audience, bring them up here, let them do all the talking.
It works.
It works great.
It works.
You know, the word season was better than saying old. So, okay, so season's a good word. Just say seasoned, okay? It's been around the block a little while, okay?
And Tony, you're like on the doorstep of season, so trust me. No. I mean, again, I think these were some great discussions. It's great to have eye-opening that, you know, again, the folks in the audience here, obviously, from a generation where there's a lot of communication done, it may not be the right type of communication. So knowing your communication techniques need to change because your audience continually changes is critically important. You know, Tony and I were talking before the break, and you know, I use the 3 T's too. Stephen, I don't know if you were hearing me, but I think you plagiarized me. But you know, I think you know, that tangible thing for young folks. You know, when I talk to the basic military trainees over at Lackland, you know, I pretty much start out with, you know, asking them, you know, what's important to them. If they have some cause or some issue that's important to them, and if the answer is yes, I just ask them, you know, what it is that they want to do to make some sort of change or to contribute to it. And you know, I do use the 3 T's, but it's something that I just ask them. And you know, like I said, you know, I don't need the Sarah McLachlan music in the background, you know, to make people cry with charities. But I just want to ask the people, you know, if you want to make a change, how is it you can do it, and what is it that you want to change? But it has to be something tangible to them, because it is the what's in it for me. I absolutely agree, Christine, with the, you know, it's your money. You want to make sure it's going to the right place, going to the right cause. But the bottom line is, you want to feel good about yourself for doing something. And if you don't have time to volunteer and stuff like that, and you can part with a little bit of your treasure, that's a way of helping the people that do have the time and the expertise that are doing the job to help out. But as I said, I appreciate this. Now, we need not to lose sight that the millennials, young little kids up here, is still just a portion of the audience. So even though we're getting some great tips on how to connect with your group, you continually have to use a multitude of communication techniques to connect with your entire audience. Thank you.
Okay, final. Okay, 30-second final statements.
That's great. Ending on 2 things. Again, like you said, you got to continually be innovative in how you communicate that's going to keep changing with our generation. Me and Christine really like Facebook and Twitter. My sister, who's 10 years younger than me, doesn't use Twitter or Facebook at all. It's all Pinterest and Instagram and Snapchat. I don't know anything about any of that. And two, I feel seasoned. And two, last thing I'd like to say, the solicitation method is still the same, face-to-face ask. They want to be asked face-to-face. So that's it.
Exactly.
Thank you. Yeah, final statement for you?
Well, again, my final statement would be just like I said previously before, you got to put their fingerprints on it. You got to put their hands on it. Once their hands are on it, once they have some sweat equity or as we would say, some investment into it, then you can really, really show them why it's important that they actually give not just time but also treasure to it as well. If we don't see that, then they're not going to. It's not important to them. So once you do that, I promise you, you can use some of your traditional stuff, some traditional things we do to help them understand why it's more important that we continue to be a part of this effort, and then they will grow in the effort.
I just wanted to say, final thing, that we need you. I need you because I have so many questions, and I don't want to risk looking younger than I already do by asking stupid questions. So a lot of times I don't ask, or I ask, somebody else, and it's just, I have a lot of questions, and I need people like you. I need mentors. I think I have, at this point, I've racked up like 6 from this conference alone, and I'm going to be relying on them because I have a million questions, and these are people that I know are not going to think I'm stupid or make fun of me, hopefully, maybe just a little bit. And I mean, we need you. So reach out in your areas where the people are, and just because they haven't asked you doesn't mean that they are not craving somebody to guide them in this weird government world. And so just ask them, make that step and reach out to them.
Hey, let's give a hand to our 3 extemporaneous panelists. You guys are getting a standing O.
You gotta blow it up.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
I really appreciate it because, frankly, the rest of the slides were washed up seasoned stuff that you guys have seen before. So I thought it was great. So thanks, everybody.
Good job, y'all.